Hello, my name is Owen, and welcome to a quick review of When the Bough Breaks by Jonathan Kellerman. What I want to do is give a brief overview of the book's about, tell you the things that I liked, and tell you the things that I didn't like. Jumping straight into it, look at this guy. Look at that guy. That's an author if I've ever seen one. This is a crime mystery thriller book written in the 80s. This is a first edition, by the way. I don't know how many times I've said that, but just want to let you know this is a first edition, red paged Jonathan Kellerman book, his debut novel, first edition. One day this might be worth a pretty penny, okay? Just let you know that I read it first. Probably not true, but I have read it, and it is first edition. But it follows our main character, Alex Delaware, who's a child psychologist. He kind of gets wrapped up into this double murder of like another psychologist and like his girlfriend, and he kind of gets wrapped up into this whole world, this whole conspiracy theory, and it evolves, it twists, it turns, and overall, I had a lot of fun with it. I'm really starting to enjoy this genre and a little bit of the cheesiness and just like the thrill, the twists and turns, the kind of classic feel of the genre in general. I really enjoy. We read True Crime earlier this year, which is a great read, and then this is another one where it's kind of like a more classic crime, not necessarily as beat the clock as True Crime was, because that was written on the back of that. It's beat the clock. This one's a little bit beat the clock, just beat the clock, trying to save lives, catch the criminals, and I really liked how this one evolved. I think overall, Alex Delaware is a very interesting protagonist. I think this perspective of a child psychologist is a very unique profession for a crime solver to have. He has all like the detective traits of a classic crime novel, like following leads, interviewing people, like he's a detective essentially, but he's not like really a detective, he's a child psychologist. So I thought that was an interesting background, and I know that Jonathan Kellerman is himself a child psychologist, so a lot of what he talks about is rooted in truth and in science, and obviously he has a very unique perspective when he comes into writing this character. So I think that was all very interesting, and obviously his profession plays a big role into the plot of this story. There's a lot of children involved in this story. The main one, book starts out with he gets pulled into it because the child is the only witness of this crime, and she's kind of like reserved in herself. He's got to bring her out of her shell, and the story proceeds from there. I think how the plot developed was very well paced. There was moments where you'd get to it where it's like, okay, it's interview after interview. I'm getting a little bit bored. Twist. Paced perfectly that every time I started to get a little bit bored, the plot took an interesting turn that kept me going into the next turn, into the climax. So that was very well done, and I had a lot of fun with that. And the other thing I really enjoyed about this book is that, and I guess I'm comparing it a lot to True Crime because it's the most recent, like, kind of this genre that I've read, but it felt a little bit more grounded because I feel like a lot of times, and I'm going to compare it to True Crime, but also compare it to like a lot of like the shows or like other media of like kind of like these crime things. It kind of feels like sometimes our main characters are like superheroes of a kind, like they're the smartest in the room, they're the Sherlock Holmes, they can figure everything out, they're good at everything, and it kind of just makes them into like a mythical figure. I think Alex Delaware feels very grounded. He is obviously incredibly smart, very good at what he does, but they have the scenes with him and his girlfriend which feel very realistic, and it's just having mundane conversations. He's not perfect, he makes mistakes, but they're also not like cataclysmically like this guy's anti-hero, like it was in True Crime where he's always like sleeping around. There is a little bit of that where it's like, oh, he's just so handsome, like the women literally can't stay off of him. There's a little bit of that, but it's not taken to the extreme like it is with a lot of other crime detective protagonists. There is a little bit of that, though. There's a little bit of like, John, how much are you projecting this is who you want to be, okay? Really? She's that attracted to you? She just wants to make out with you? Okay, really? But there's very minimal of that. Overall, I feel very grounded. The only thing, I'm getting worked up over this. The only thing that to go back on what I just said, the only thing that's not like that at all, the Alex Delaware is very good at martial arts, which like they mentioned, like, oh, he's going to the classes, he trains, he kind of gets beat up by his instructor. It's like, okay, that's a weird hobby, or it's a hobby for him to have, whatever. It's not weird, it's just another thing to his character. By the end of the climax, there's certain scenes where like his martial arts skill is revealed, and I'm like, you probably didn't need to make him a great fighter too. Like we could have like made him like win through his smarts or just like be a little bit more brute force about it. There's a lot of martial arts at the end. It kind of turns into an action movie, which I didn't like. It took me a little bit, not that I didn't like it, it just took me out of it a little bit. It seemed a very convenient, fast way to wrap up some of the problems that he gets into. But, it's part of the fun, right? It's part of the pulpiness of it, that he, wins these hand-to-hand fights, and there's, car chases and stuff like that in the climax, especially because most of the book is so grounded in slow and slow building and about psychology and getting into the minds of these people. For it to I wouldn't go as far as saying it devolves, that sounds very negative, but it kind of devolves into an action movie, big set pieces type thing, like it's made for the big screen. It's just a little bit of a tone change, which I just thought that maybe I could have done without possibly, but it's a lot of fun, right? Would have liked if it was also a little bit more grounded, but it was a lot of fun, so it's kind of give or take, right? And I think for this genre, I have a lot more leeway for that kind of tone, for that kind of cheesy action 80s hero type style, that I'll forgive it, but it is noticeable, and I did think about it when I'm reading, and I think that's one of the Hallmark things, telltale signs when reading a book, where my sixth sense will trigger, and I know something is wrong, and then I'll start thinking about the book as I'm reading it. That's like my body telling me that you've read something incorrect, or something in there is not jiving with you, the fact that you're thinking about it, because it all should just be natural, in my opinion, when you're reading a book. It just feel like the words are right. There were some moments where I'm like, really, he just beat the crap out of that guy? Really? The guy that's much bigger than him, he just beat the crap out of him? Okay, sure he did. But it was fine. So overall, it's a lot of fun. It's like I said, it's grounded, it's more realistic. I wouldn't say it's slow paced though. I'd say it's medium paced for the most part, with a fast paced climax. But it's a quick read as well. Medium paced, quick read, relatively short book, just under 300 pages, and a lot of fun. If you guys have read the rest of this series, the Alex Dillover series, let me know how it is. And if you haven't read it at all, I think this is perfectly good as a standalone. I feel no urge to continue his books and see what other adventures he gets into, because I could see this format getting a little bit more cheesy, maybe a little bit tiresome perhaps. It's like, oh, we gotta bring in the child psychologist again. It's like, really, do you? You need to bring in the child psychologist again for another crime? So I have no idea how those develop. That's just my gut reaction to seeing that there's sequels to this, but it's perfectly good as a standalone. It works very well. I thought the conclusion was satisfying, and how the conspiracy and mystery developed was fun. And I enjoyed it. And I didn't exactly see where it was going, which is always fun when you're reading a mystery type crime novel like that, where you don't know where it's going. It's a lot of fun to see where it ends up, and you're satisfied with it while also not being able to predict it. It's a perfect scenario for a book like this. Overall, a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, and I do recommend it. So be sure to like and subscribe if you like the video and you want to see more like it in the future. And also, if you have any other crime novels like this, like maybe from the 80s, that are kind of like this, kind of pulpy. I know Man Carrying Thing likes that kind of book. He recommends them in his channel a lot. I'm not going to rewatch those videos though, but if you got any good ones, I'm starting to get into this genre a little bit, these kind of pulpy crime books. So I'm open to recommendations, and thanks for sticking around.